Hello, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Logan Frost, and welcome to the Idioms Guide to Let It Die. In this edition of the Idioms Guide, we'll be covering floor 1 to 10, and then in other videos, 10 to 20, 30 to 40, you get it. Now, it is critical that you understand that the rules that I'm going to be presenting in front of you are going to try to be more or less unspecific. The reason why is because Let It Die is very situational, and all in all, you can end up in a clusterfuck of situations that can leave you very, very unprepared and very much dead, which is a big negative considering if you die in this game, it's a big old fuck you and you have to grind your character back. A little bit less in this full range, but when you get up topside, goddamn dude, it's horrible. The Idioms Guide. Also, on a quick side note, it's very important to know that Let It Die is not necessarily a game that's ruled by difficulty, but instead in its unforgiving nature. Now you can actually manipulate this quite easily by preparing and etc, but when it comes to the AI, they're not all too smart. But ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, let's jump into the first rule of the Tower of Barbs. Rule 1, perhaps one of the most important rules when traveling through the Tower of Barbs, is run. Now you heard me, run, like fast, like really fucking fast, be able to manage your stamina, that's the first job. Like we already established, this game is not necessarily difficult, but is exceptionally unforgiving. Now what that means is that sometimes, a lot of time, you'll be faced against odds that are frankly unwinnable, especially if you're getting into Let It Die right now, and you're on the back end of progression, and sadly this game does thrive on the destruction of the weak, sadly, and that's you right now. Please stay strong. You'll be able to get up there, man. I made it up there and I'm a fucking idiot. Anyways, like I was saying, run. This is one of the most important aspects of this game, especially when it comes to combat and all in all running away from people. The moment the game stopped getting exceptionally hard for me was the moment I realized that running solves a lot of your problems. It allows you to dodge at double the speed and it allows you to get the hell away from enemies. Again, try to utilize this, and the gameplay that you're seeing right now is one, not what you guys are necessarily going to be seeing. My character at least has way too much health. I just don't want to have to break one of my characters. You get it? You'll get it eventually. We'll talk about it. Anyway, so hopefully you understand run. We'll get into this a little bit in the combat section as well, but for right now, let's move on to the next rule. For the love of all that is good, never, ever lock on to your enemy. It is one of the stupidest things you can do. The game, again, started becoming a lot easier when I stopped doing this. You are far better to just sprint in a direction and then enter back into combat. Fuck it, let's talk about combat, cause why not? We are here and it's one of the first things you encounter. So, how combat works within Let It Die is actually not as complicated as you think. Well, first of all, let's break it into two different groups. You have one smart AI and you have one dumb AI. Dumb AI is decayed-looking bodies, aka screamers, the thing you're going to encounter in most levels. But there are these rare, and that's a rare, they appear almost every level, if you're higher up anyways. These people just so happen to still have their brain intact and not rotted away, meaning they will dodge perfectly if they have a ranged weapon, that should be fixed, but anyways. And they usually have a lot more armor and a lot better weapon. Now this varies based on your grade of fighter and the characters you've unlocked, but still. But it's very important that you know the difference. One enemy is very smart, one is very dumb. Utilize this. So general combat, how the hell do I fight things better? Not the smartest way of saying it, but okay. Well, like we already established, for the love of God, do not lock on. It's rather dumb and it locks you in place and your character moves slower because he tries to strafe. It's shit. Instead, you're gonna want to utilize your sprints. So one of the best ways I found to do this, as soon as you so happen to see your enemy end his combo, that's when you dive in. Now, if you want to get even more with this, you can actually start to run away. As you start to run away, the AI will stop his combo halfway through to chase you, and that's your moment to dive, assuming you have a fairly fast weapon. Now, the root of successful combat is memory. Each weapon has a combo type. Now, this sounds really overwhelming, but not really. You can kind of put it together as you're fighting them, as long as you're just playing safe and keeping back and utilizing the sprint feature more than the dodge feature. The dodge feature is kind of stupid because it takes too much of your stamina away when your sprint is, I find, better. For instance, it's way better instead just to sprint to the left for a burst and then hitting him when he has an opening. Hopefully I'm showing you guys some gameplay so it's easier to understand. Again, use sprint as a dash and not dash as a dash. Dash is that I need to leave right now, not I want to counterattack. But yes, every combo, every weapon has a slight opening, and even ones that have a very tiny opening, you can still mess with the AI. And that brings us to the next tip of combats. You are still fighting AI. Even if they're the smart version, you can get around some things. One of these things being ranged weapons. Ranged weapons are a plague until you figure out what their bane is, and that is corners and/or corners. It's just corners and maybe sprinting to the left, but even then, when you have the smart AI, they can somehow trace you. It's dumb. Anyways, corners. So what you're gonna want to do if you have a sniper enemy, an assault rifle enemy, a pistol enemy, anything like that, and you're low on health, you maybe can't have even a single chance of getting hit because you'll die, or maybe you just want to play conservatively. Best way to play this game. Anyways, you're gonna want to get behind a corner and give the AI like 2 or 3 seconds, and they'll push towards you. And as soon as they breach that corner, you slash. And now another tip that's helped me many times in the past is whenever there's a lower platform, the AI will have to drop down with their own animation, and that, my good sir, is your opening for attack. So be sure to manipulate the AI like that. Again, the basis of winning battle encounters in this game is very much you just manipulating the shit out of the fact that that is a screamer that has his head decayed and his brain mushed, or it's just a fucking AI in a game, so you can kind of manipulate it that way. That is the best way to win. So to summarize what I said, utilize sprint as a type of dodge. The basis of combat in this game is looking for people's openings and then going in with your own attack. And lastly, use the environment to your advantage. This is not necessarily like a blade on the wall, so much as it's just a slight varying in height, or a platform that you jump off of. It's a whole thing. Also, how to handle ranged weapons. You just get behind a fucking wall, wait for them to come around, you smack them, good. Alright, so back to the rules and or tips. So again, if you're just starting Let It Die, one of the greatest habits to get behind is collect everything. This is something that is lesser right now, but it's a good habit to install on yourself early on. Because, my god, when you breach the 20th level, that's when you have to have upgraded your stuff or you're not going to be able to fight anymore. You can get by on your fist for about the 20th floor. As soon as you breach that, not happening anymore, which is terribly sad because the fist is just so fun to use. But yeah, that also leads me to my next point. One of the best beginner classes, I feel, is the collector class. Now the reason why that is because again, when you're this low down, enemies aren't really overly strong, so you can kind of manipulate them and get around that way. I just use my fist for the entire 10 levels. 20 levels actually, and I just had a collector that just kept collecting everything. So just a quick tip, side tip, yeah. And now we have perhaps the most important tip. And that tip is get tips from this guy. This weirdo. Look at it. Oh god. Man, I wish I was his friend. Yeah, so constantly go tap him on the shoulder. He'll give you a little stupid ball thing, and it'll tell you a bunch of things within the game. Here's me telling you a few right now. So one of the base things you should always try to do is cook your mushrooms and or food and or beasts, whatever. They're basically like potions in any other game. They give you a status effect, they can definitely give you an edge in combat, and etc, etc, etc. The second thing is there is a lot of base hidden mechanics within the game that it does not explicitly tell you, because it wants you to kind of find them through him. Some of these mechanics are dropkick. Dropkick is insanely useful on the lower floors. When you get up topside, the risk is not really worth the reward, but what dropkick is when you build up enough sprint, you will actually be able to just lunge forward with your feet, drop kicking somebody. This can do great damage, but like I just said, it's kind of a risk/reward. So if you don't happen to hit your target, what's gonna happen is you're gonna be on the ground face first, which in some instances is not that bad because the AI is kind of stupid and or the hitboxes are just kind of really good in this game, I can't tell. Yeah, you usually don't get hit unless someone has a pick or a very specific weapon. Every weapon is kind of at the mercy of their weird animations and etc. Which also makes some weapons godly and others not so great. And finally, maybe one of the most important things that was most irritating to me when I first played the game, this probably should have been in the combat section, but anyways, we're covering it here. Tubers. Why are they important? Why can they be irritating as shit? And yeah, well, tubers have a secret way usually to kill them. Your first tuber you're gonna meet are these dudes with these giant fucking arms, lanky bastards with swords. Ain't that big of a deal, not even in game. Ugh, it's kind of just nothing. Anyways, just walk up to them and smack them. They have a chance of getting stunned just by you being present, so kind of like a throwaway enemy. Anyway, so they're kind of fucking done, who cares? But the one enemy that you are going to be having troubles with, at least I think you might, is this damn flying bird thing with a drill. I'm not good with names, I don't remember what they're called, but yeah, what you want to do is you want to bait out their giant screw attack. So they do this lunges, which are not what you're looking for, but they can get you closer to them getting aggroed to where they actually dive at you. Again, what are you going to be doing? Sprinting like a crazy person, just to try to bait them out. Don't use the dodge button. It's slower and it's just shittier. Don't use the dodge button unless you want to leave. Anyways, just sprint around them, try to bait out their attack, go in close, then come back out, go in close until they finally smack in the ground. They'll get stuck, and that's when you go in and kill them. Pretty easy, but all in all, it's sometimes annoying to have to deal with that. But again, if you're just utilizing sprint to go up and down, sprint never really stops. So even if you make like a sharp turn, your character will just make that sharp turn. You guys probably seen the gameplay, you get it. Cool. And we have the weird peacock things, I guess. They have like a giant ass end, and they're really fast, and they have like long-ass nail hands. My god, you're seeing them, man. There they are. They're probably the hardest tuber, I would say. So what you're going to want to do is option 1. You're going to want to get distance. Now, as soon as you get distance, what they will do is they will lunge towards you, kind of like a giant sweep/dash. As soon as they do this, they are put in an animation state and will peer right up on you. And of course, what do you do when they're in an animation state? You whack them, you kill them, they're done. They're really low health, but they're such a pain in the ass to actually kill. They actually can be invulnerable if you attack them. Now, another way to do this, in case you're just the one person's being an asshole, sometimes the AIs want to work with you, etc. What you can do is just block. Block through all their combo attacks, they don't do that much damage, and then punch them back. If you have stuff like the mosquito decal or the vampire, you won't get that, it's later on. Anyways, you get the point. There's ways for you to get around that or get your health back just by attacking. Anywho, cool. And the last tuber is rather pointless. He's basically just this huge mecha thing you'll face in the 10 and up floors. But anyways, yeah, he just has a weak back. Just let him do an attack, get around the attack via sprinting. Best way to do it, and then just smack him in the back. It's pretty, yeah. Anywho, moving on. Wait, I forgot about 2 tubers. One they're not going to be seeing yet. We'll talk about him when we get to the 20th floor. It's not a bad tuber at all. He's pretty easy to deal with. But I did forget about the gunner lady. The gunner lady is essentially this torso with guns and a hole in the stomach with a cannon. It's pretty simple, just don't let her lock onto you. That's kind of where that ends. Just get behind a wall, strafe if she does lock onto you and you survive some of the damage, although she probably will still hit you. This game's like that. Anyways, hopefully you guys enjoy the rest of the video. Quick edit. Now we're going to quickly be covering the bosses that you're going to be fighting, although they are kind of a give me when you're this low. There are 4 bosses when progressing through each chunk of the Tower of Barbs, 10, 20, 30, etc. So you have 4 mini bosses to actually face. Now one of them is going to be a ranged character, which again, we've already established how to get around that. Just hide behind a wall until they're done shooting and then go in. Pretty simple. The second one, or the first one you're actually going to be fighting, is a giant tank who hits really, really hard, but all in all is exceptionally easy to see his combo and to get around. In fact, even at the highest floors, he's probably my favorite boss to take on just because his combos are kind of obvious. Cool. The third one, oh shit, that's probably like the only ones you're going to be fighting. Well, I'll tell you the rest here because why not? The other boss that you're eventually going to have to be fighting is this bastard called Gato. He's just a slug fucking thing that's a tank, basically. He's a tank that's... It's just a long fight. That's his only gimmick, is that he has a long-ass fight, and that's what you gotta be aware of. He also has a bunch of attacks later on. He's the worst. Anyways, there's also a secret mini-boss. He's fast, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it, guys. And of course, how do we take on the Dawn? I'm not gonna spoil anything, but I am going to say that when you fight him, you happen to be in an enclosed space. You're going to want to hit him against the walls or railings of that enclosed space. Especially if you have your fists and you have your rage move. If you lock onto him, I know we're never supposed to lock on, you don't have to, but it does help you align things properly. Anyways, you can use your rage move on your fists, and that has a lot of kickback. You use that twice, and that'll kick him up against the railing, almost instant killing him. Fantastic way to do it. Or you could just fucking hit him a bunch with your fists. It works too. Just be, again, number 1 rule, sprint. When you're like, always sprint, but always manage your sprinting as well, because you can get winded and then you're out of breath. Also kind of a thing. Anywho, and lastly, of course, I abandoned this voice exceptionally quickly, but anyways, you get it. Last thing we're going to be covering is just general things I think would help. What weapons helped me when I was climbing throughout the Tower of Barbs? Now, through playing, you'll just get this, but you guys don't want to have to spend that much time, I imagine. That's why you're here. You're efficient, and I love that. So one of my favorite weapons, and held my hand throughout floor 10 and 20, is this weapon called the Iron. It is solid beyond belief. And again, the reason why it is so good is because it's like a splash damage AoE hits. Now again, this is really good if you happen to, this is more of like a later game thing, but you can run through a level, train a bunch of enemies behind you, get behind a corner, and as soon as you see them all about to breach that corner, you use your Iron and it hits everyone, because it is an AoE based weapon. Also, it helps with Gato because he's a huge target. You smack him with the Iron, Iron spits out water, Water's AoE kills a lot of him in the process. Cool. Now the other weapon that helped me out a ton, especially dealing with haters, I think they're called? Haters, yeah. Hunters are the bastards that other players can send after you. We'll get into that in another part. The machete. It is such a good weapon. Now the reason why it is such a good weapon is because it's one of the fastest hitting weapons in the game. It's also fairly hard to read. It has a lunge attack. It has a giant combo when you up the mastery, which by the way, I'm kind of going across the things you guys probably know, like mastery, mushrooms, general combat, rage moves. I'm like, I hope you guys read the tooltips. They're still important. This is not everything. So a counterpoint is how the hell do you deal with, well, honestly, most weapons? dive to the left and or to the right based on the weapon. That helps me a ton in combat, especially with things like the machete specifically. Dive around them and try to circle around them as much as possible, and you'll kind of mess them up that way. Again, one of the best ways to deal with weapons that you don't want to deal with is bait an enemy's combo out, and again, just bolt backwards. The AI will take it as you running away and end the combo early, and that's when you dive in. So yeah, there's kind of a balance to combat. I don't mean to harp on that so much. It's just, again, these are all tips that I really wish I would have known when I was first climbing in the Tower of Barbs. Anyways, guys, people who are also Let It Die fans, please write comments in the description down below to help people. I will be covering things that are valuable when you start climbing up even higher to floor 20, and then 30, and then 40. That is where the IDIOMS guide will go. I had a lot of fun making this, guys. I hope it helped a lot. Again, I probably missed some things that a bunch of you guys had issues with when you were first climbing. Definitely go check it out. By the way, just in case you're like, why the hell should I listen to this guy? I did climb the barbs without spending a single cent, but this was in the very glorious days of Let It Die when they didn't nerf mushrooms so hard and the strong didn't prey on the weak. That's such a good model to build your game off. I'm so sorry. I can't help it. It's just, it comes out of me. God, I love this game, but God, is that a stupid system. Anyways, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Hopefully you guys check out my other content. If not, I completely understand. And hopefully you guys make it to the top of the Tower of Barbs. This has been the IDIOMS Guide to Let It Die. Part 1, Edition 1, whatever. Thank you guys so much for your time, and goodbye.